Then there was the more anarchistic approach. This is a kind of anarchistic theater, music theater play where this guitar contains crackle circuits and strings and has its own sound system. And I looked very serious, as you see. This is 81. I couldn't find that many pictures in between, but this is one of the first robot pieces that I did. This went into the Holland Festival and had like really people being very angry because for 1.5 hours they would watch these machines go this text, pretend they were stoned, pretend they were machines who wanted human rights because most humans behave like robots anyway. So it was a bit too early for Holland, I'm afraid. But I'm still proud of the riot that came. But a lot of people finally cancelled coming, and a lot of younger kids came, and we had like a fantastic series of events. As you can see, some of them are like real machines and running on batteries and have all kind of interesting stuff. But there's also fake machines with people inside, so it had this kind of Turing test. But I must be honest, my brother, another brother, I've misused them all in my work, was sitting up there with an Apple II computer, and the engineers at that time thought it wise to program a live thing like this in Pascal. So for those of you who know programming, this is not the language you would use, you know. So he had to do a lot of override to prevent from these robots to run into the audience. This is in Bologna. Actually, one of the robots that we left on the street. There was a big festival with Brian Eno and some other people and myself, and we did concerts, and in the evening we let the beast loose. And there's some nice atmospherical pictures of that, and here it's retreating in the castle. This is later again, I can't stand watching myself in this image, but this is actually there because it shows the first set of hands. The hands were developed really inspired by this wonderful thing at that time, which was called MIDI. You know, these rare occasions that commercial people would sit down and agree on a standard, which still I think is fantastic. And whatever the protocol MIDI meant for a lot of people after that. It was very exciting that I could think of an independent control unit and independent from the sound producing unit. So because most of the new digital technology that I had seen at that time were still related to keyboard, which for me was something related to the church and melodic stuff that I didn't like. And I was really very interested in navigating through sound, in controlling and touching sound. There is an experience with LSD in a bit earlier where I really, you know, of course with the music of Jimi Hendrix in the room, saw his music coming by and could touch it and change it by touching it and by lifting it. And that has always played in my mind since then. And I didn't take LSD anymore, but so I needed to find another way. And this MIDI stuff seemed perfect. We run into trouble with keynotes, you know, note events and all that stuff. So we started using a lot of controllers, and actually the first sensor that was built, which was a little device on the back that would translate these codes into MIDI. And I would have to drive half an hour to another city to have somebody change the program and, you know, come back a few days later. It was really a very slow process, but I managed to do concerts then in '84, and actually, funnily enough, the first concert was in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, and of course half of the machine didn't work, but I managed to get my way out. So this was one of the first incidents that allowed me to navigate through sound. Later, actually at that time I was also a pilot, and I was interested when Joe Paradiso mentioned his interest in cockpits, or, you know, he suggested that we should look into cockpits to find an instrument. The interesting thing is that indeed when I started flying, it was amazing how you could move around. I know that Joel Chalabi also was inspired by this idea of flight simulators for M, if I'm right. And so this whole idea of, you know, having another way to think about sound and navigating through sound and pushing it around was really nice. And the interesting of the cockpit thing is, if you look at these days at airplanes, we all know that the really first-hand technology is about throwing these pilots out because they don't do the job very well and have no cockpits anymore, or maybe some cockpits on the ground. But my flying history went to paragliding, where you're connected with wires to the wind in a way, and is really being in touch again with the medium that you use to navigate, or sorry, to move, is very important. So where I distance myself from that by using the hands, in flying I was very happy to be in touch with immediate wind and really feel it in its detail and its fragility, even though it's a big wing. So thin wires. Some images of the hands as they are now. I might get back into it later, but I don't want to do too much technology. But these hands were built in a fantastic way by Jorgen Blinkman at Steim. Frank Balday played an immense role. There's a lot of people that I should mention, but they have been extremely inspiring all through this process. And more names can be found on the website. This is basically, you see there's keys that can be assigned to many functions that actually they're being reassigned all the time by the thumb keys here, that I have like little ranges around my thumb. There's also, you see sonar rings there. You see here two receivers and a transmitter. So I can basically use the bowing movement as really a data slider for many different functions. And this is what I'm doing all the time by moving the functions. Also the keys can be used indeed to trigger events, but also to modify them, to modify what happens with that sonar ride. There's some pressure sensors, and at the underside there's you cannot see, there's mercury switches that also allow me to look at positions. I haven't shown the time, so I should go fast. This is a MIDI conductor. This is one that we built for educational purposes. That's being used. This is another glamour picture of me that's been overused with numerous versions of the hands. This is collaboration with other musicians, Lauren Anderson. Last year I worked at NIME with Najib Shirali, some of you might remember. So I've really liked to collaborate with people. This is a rare meeting with Left Turner at Steim. I was so proud that I could just smile. And there was this beautiful moment that he tried on with his daughter in the hands and played them. And this is another result. Somebody sent me, and there's a toy company that made these, and they were indeed at one of the computer music conferences where I demonstrated. So I'm very proud that instead of going from toys to instruments, somebody has found it useful to go from instruments to toys. And with all of us, it's the other way around. Here I come to the web. That concept is from the mid-80s, late 80s. I really needed a method to control more data with simple movements. I really wanted to be able to make something clear and simple and really control complexity. So one morning I was looking out the window and I saw a web, and I thought, just imagine that each wire is a sensor hooked up to some variable in a software program. Then, just putting your finger at one place will make all these variables change according to where you put it. And if there's elasticity and time delay in a web, so suddenly I saw how beautiful a web was, and I built this one, which is actually then in the Science Museum, and I would love to play it. Anyway, this is actually in the time that we put it on exhibit in the Touch exhibition later. And so this is that web again. And we built another web which was built for a Paris project in the AirCom again, and where you have keys ranged, so it's a bit like the hands. There is sliders, there's all these wires, there's two-sided wires. You can see there's one web that is connected in the middle, so where there's the real old web idea, but we very quickly got into webs where wires are not really connected, but where you make the connection between the wires, because again,